We're heading to Giza, Egypt. The year is 1989. Now, when you think about a true crime story, you often expect this sudden chaotic explosion of violence.
Right.
But this story is different. This crime was built over 17 years. It was slow-cooked in psychological abuse and a really, really pathological jealousy.
It's a study in how sustained emotional torment can, completely erode a person's identity until they feel like they have no options left, except for these impossible extremes.
So our mission today is to unpack the facts of this case, the case of Rabia and Abdel Tawab risk.
And we'll use their, frankly, terrifying story to understand the devastating impact of that kind of long-term control and what's called extreme attachment disorder.
Okay, let's set the scene. I want you to picture the contrast here. You have this massive, luxurious hotel right near the pyramids. It's bustling with tourists from all over the world.
And then, working silently behind the scenes, is a 35-year-old chef named Abdel Tawab Risk.
Skilled professional.
Extremely. By all accounts from his work, he was disciplined, reliable, a quiet fixture in that kitchen. He really kept to himself, known for his dedication. He just seemed to embody respectability.
But then he finishes his shift, leaves the hotel, and just never shows up for his next one.
The alarm bells start ringing pretty much immediately at the hotel.
Oh. And then his wife, Rabia, she arrives at the hotel looking for him, and that confirms everyone's worst fear. Abdel Tawab had vanished.
So now you have both the hotel and Rabia filing missing person reports. Investigators, they start with the obvious. They look at the location. A huge tourist hub, lots of people coming and going.
The first thought has to be an affair, right?
Exactly. They suspected he'd just run off. Maybe he was having an affair or had even secretly remarried. That sort of thing wasn't unheard of in that line of work.
That theory just, it evaporated pretty quickly.
It did. As they interviewed his colleagues, his peers, everyone insisted on the same thing. He was private, a homebody, completely dedicated to his family.
So there are no leads. Days are passing, and the case is just going cold.
And for the police, that silence must have been, just deafening. They're hitting dead ends, just interviewing the same people again and again, hoping someone slips up.
Okay, so let's unpack this moment, because here is where the entire narrative takes this sharp, deeply disturbing turn. 2 days into the search, Rabia, the wife who seemed so concerned, she walks into the police station.
And she isn't frantic. She's not crying.
No, she is perfectly composed.
The officers, they're expecting to see a mother of 5 who's on the verge of a total collapse from anxiety. Instead, she sits down.
And just tells them to stop looking.
Right. She confesses immediately, states with this absolute chilling calm, "I killed him and cut him up, and I know exactly why I did it."
That's serenity, that complete lack of emotion. It immediately made the officers question if she was sane.
Of course, you expect remorse or at least a flicker of panic. There was just nothing.
So they have to recover from that shock and ask the 2 immediate crucial questions.
Where is the body, and why did you do this?
Her response was just practical.
Yeah.
She agrees to take them, the police and the forensics teams, back to the house to prove everything she just said.
And that immediate, unprompted confession, delivered with such tranquility, it just suggested a psychological state that was so far beyond simple impulse or rage.
It felt deliberate.
Almost planned.
So they make the drive back to her house in Giza. Can you just imagine the atmosphere as the police cars pull up?
The first thing they find are the 5 children. The oldest is only 10 years old, the youngest just a year and a half.
And the kids' faces.
That was the first tragic confirmation that something horrific had happened. Their faces were just full of this palpable fear, this deep worry. It was obvious to the investigators that these kids hadn't just missed their father.
They had witnessed something.
Something unspeakable. But they were just too terrified to say a word.
And the evidence inside was immediate. Police found visible, unmistakable bloodstains in different parts of the house. So her story, as horrifying as it was, it's being backed up by physical evidence right away.
Then she leads the team outside, to a soft, muddy area right next to the house.
Which is a detail we need to come back to.
It is. And without any hesitation, she kneels down and just starts digging in the soft earth with her bare hands.
And that's the moment the unbelievable becomes reality.
Yeah.
She quickly uncovers human remains, an arm, then more parts of her husband's body.
And because the ground was so muddy, the remains hadn't really decomposed much, which made the identification instant and just gruesome.
As the forensic team is recovering the body parts, they notice one final horrible detail.
The head is missing.
When they ask her, she tells them she severed it and threw it into a canal nearby.
I just keep coming back to that. The meticulous dismemberment, but then burying him right next to the family home.
It's a total contradiction. If you want someone gone, you get rid of them far away.
Yeah.
What was her reasoning for that specific choice?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it really shines a light on this idea of pathological attachment. Rabia later said she wanted him to remain with her even in death.
So it wasn't about erasing him.
No, not at all. It was about permanent ownership. In her mind, she owned him. And if she couldn't have him alive, she would keep him dead, right there beside her. It speaks to a total loss of the boundary between herself, her partner, and property.
That is just the ultimate conclusion of ownership. But to really get why she went to these extremes, we have to understand this wasn't spontaneous. This was the final eruption of a 17-year slow burn.
Exactly. We have to rewind almost 2 decades to understand how this whole psychological trap was built.
Their relationship started under pretty challenging circumstances to begin with.
It did. When they married, Abdel Tawab was 18 and Rabia was only 13 years old, and that initial imbalance was just made so much worse by Rabia's own deep, deep insecurities.
From the very beginning, she saw herself as very ugly. She had a complete lack of self-confidence.
And on the other hand, she saw Abdel Tawab as extremely handsome. So for her, him choosing to marry her felt like a genuine miracle.
A miracle she could never, ever risk losing.
And tragically, Abdel Tawab systematically used that insecurity against her for 17 years. This wasn't just accidental cruelty. This was sustained psychological warfare.
Let's break down that abuse cycle because the details are devastating. It wasn't just, disrespect. He was explicit about it.
He was. He would constantly tell her she was unattractive, basically suggesting he was doing her a favor just by staying married to her.
And he weaponized infidelity to do it.
Yes. He didn't just cheat, he confessed to it. But it was the framing of the confession that was the real poison. He explicitly told her he cheated because the other women were much more beautiful than she was.
That phrasing is so specific. I mean, how does that differ from just having an affair? What does that do to a person long term?
Well, it shifts the guilt, right? An affair is a betrayal of the relationship. This was a personal assault on her core worth. By saying he sought out more beautiful women, he was making her ugliness the reason for his actions.
He was telling her, I'm doing this because you are not enough.
Exactly. And that ensures she internalizes all the blame for his cheating.
And then he brought his work into this torture. He's at this grand hotel meeting foreign travelers all the time.
Right. So he would come home, describe these beautiful foreign women in detail, and then look directly at Rabia and claim that upon seeing her, he felt frustrated, or that he experienced a state of depression.
It's an incredible level of emotional sadism.
And this strain was made even worse early on by their struggle with fertility. They spent 6 years trying to conceive. Rabia, feeling so inadequate already, was visiting doctors, even sorcerers, just desperate to get pregnant.
And that period just amplified her deepest fear. She felt she had to tolerate the abuse, the insults, the cheating, all because she needed to stay with him, hoping that having his child would finally secure her place.
But the abuse cycle had another critical piece, this kind of hot and cold technique.
What do you mean?
Abdel Tawab would follow these profoundly cruel statements with sudden, intense expressions of love. He'd tell her she was the most important thing to him, that he'd never truly loved anyone else.
So that's a classic manipulation tool, isn't it? It creates this massive confusion. How does that back and forth deepen the dependency?
It's incredibly effective because those little flashes of affection, they act as intermittent reinforcement. The victim stops seeing the abuse as this continuous thing and starts chasing the memory of the good times.
So believing if they just try harder, the loving partner will come back.
Precisely. It binds them to him completely while he just keeps chipping away at their identity. The source material correctly identified this as his form of slow burn revenge.
Eventually, they did have 5 children. But that psychological foundation was it was permanently broken. Her jealousy never went away.
She was convinced he was only staying for the kids and that one day he would finally replace her. And then the ultimate threat materialized.
In the form of Samia, Rabia's neighbor.
And crucially, Samia was also Abdel Tawab's cousin and, years earlier, his former fiancée.
So for Rabia, Samia was the living, breathing embodiment of all her insecurities, the real ruin she'd been afraid of for 17 years.
Especially because Samia was described as genuinely beautiful. She ticked all the boxes of the women Abdel Tawab claimed he preferred. The escalation was, well, it was inevitable.
And Samia seemed to just Stir the pot.
Oh, absolutely. She would deliberately interact and joke with Abdel Tawab when he came home, often right in front of Rabia. But the truly malicious part is Abdel Tawab's reaction.
He didn't shut it
He
down.
encouraged it, or at least he accepted it. He would even watch Samia from behind the kitchen curtain, clearly provoking Rabia's jealousy even further.
Using it to inflict one last, heavy dose of torment.
He was fueling her jealousy right up to the very end. Which brings us to the night of the crime. Abdel Tawab gets home late from work. He's exhausted.
And Rabia immediately confronts him. Her suspicion and jealousy over Samia had finally reached its breaking point.
But this time, his exhaustion won out over his cruelty. He was too drained to fight.
He delivered the final ultimatum.
He told her, with the startling finality, "This is your last day." He said he would divorce her the next morning, and he told her to call her uncle right then to arrange it while he went to pray.
And that was it. Her entire reality just shattered. Divorce meant losing the miracle she had tolerated 17 years of torture to keep.
She just stood there in the kitchen, paralyzed. She's faced with this absolute final rejection that confirmed every single insult he had ever thrown at her.
And her pathological jealousy, her total lack of self-worth, it all boiled down to one single desperate thought.
He is hers. And if she cannot have him alive, then he will belong to no one.
The decision was made right there, in that instant. She went and got a large kitchen cleaver, a fatter.
And she waited.
She waited until he had started his prayer. She entered the room while he was vulnerable, focused.
And she slit his throat.
The violence that came next is almost impossible to process, especially with the children there.
She dragged his body past her 5 young children. They just watched in silent horror. She moved him to the bathroom, and then she completed the dismemberment right there in front of them.
After burying the parts next to the house, making sure he would stay with her, she cleaned everything.
And then she faced her children, the 5 witnesses, and she threatened them. She told them she would do the same thing to them if they spoke a single word.
She had a plan, initially, to just stick with the story that he'd disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
But her emotional descent was just so swift.
So profound. The very next day, she tried to take her own life. She couldn't cope with the reality of his absence, even though she was the one who created it.
Her attempt failed, and that self-destructive impulse immediately turned into intense paranoia.
Right. She became convinced, logically I guess, that one of her kids or his family would eventually expose her, and that would lead to her own death.
So it was that fear, the fear of discovery, that drove her straight to the police station.
The ultimate paradox. She kills him to keep him, tries to kill herself because she can't live without him, and then confesses because she's afraid of the consequences.
And there's one last shocking detail from her full confession. She declared that she wanted to be executed.
So she could be reunited with him in death.
This case just offers such a clear, horrifying look at the consequences when long-term emotional abuse turns into a pathology of ownership.
When we look at the whole 17-year picture, we really see 2 central failures that led to this tragedy.
The first one lies squarely with Abdel Tawab, his cruelty, his slow burn psychological revenge. It was all calculated. He was free to leave if he was unhappy.
But he didn't. Instead, the sustained emotional abuse, the infidelity confessions framed as her fault, the constant undermining of her worth, that was the pressure cooker for this violence.
And the second failure was Rabia's inability to find a simple legal way out.
Which was driven by that pathological attachment and a complete lack of self-trust, fueled by 17 years of being told she was worthless without him. Her identity was so merged with his approval that when faced with divorce, her attachment, it mutated into murderous ownership.
So what does this all mean for you? This case is a profound illustration of how sustained emotional abuse can completely erode a person's identity. It can limit their perceived choices to impossible extremes.
It shows us the mechanism, really. The abuse basically destroyed her internal firewall, making violence against him seem like the only alternative to the violence against herself that had been going on for nearly 2 decades.
Imagine living for 17 years, where the person closest to you constantly reinforces that you are unworthy, that you're ugly, that you're replaceable, while also offering just enough affection to keep you tethered to them.
The sources note Rabia lost confidence over time. But what is the true point of no return for a person trapped in that kind of cycle? And how does that complete loss of self-worth turn into violent action against the tormentor rather than just self-preservation? That's something for you to mull or explore on your own.